The National Desk, America's News, now.
This week on the National Desk, feeling the heat. How the summer heat wave could be costing you more at the pump. Plus, AI's impact on the workforce. Which jobs are most at risk for being replaced by robots? And later, Americans abroad. Where to go if you're trying to save on travel this summer. From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and on this weekend edition, we take a look at the big headlines of the week and look ahead at what to expect, starting with the 4 big stories we've been following all week. 2 U.S. Navy sailors arrested after allegedly passing national defense information to China. The alarming new report accusing Russia of torture as the war in Ukraine continues. And Hunter Biden in the hot seat. New allegations against the president's son, saying he used his father for leverage when doing business. We begin with former President Donald Trump arrested and arraigned in Washington, D.C.
This is a persecution of a political opponent.
Taking on his critics, former President Trump returning to Washington, but instead of being back at the White House, it was for a hearing at a D.C. federal courthouse. Trump insisting he's not guilty of the sweeping 4-count case prosecutors have leveled against him by special counsel Jack Smith, accusing him of trying to overturn the 2020 election results. For the first time in the nation's history, a former president is arraigned on criminal charges. Trump appearing in court for the 3rd time in just 4 months, coming face to face with special counsel Jack Smith in a federal courtroom for the 2nd time. The National Desk, Scott Thuman, picking up our coverage with the next time Trump is due in court, plus the request for a speedy trial.
Well, for the 3rd time in just 4 months, former President Trump has been arrested. This a little different, though, accused of breaking the law not before or after his time in the White House, but this time while serving as president. To a mix of cheers
Lock him up! Lock him up!
and jeers, the former president back in court, this time in D.C., and just blocks from the Capitol, where he's accused of guiding a riot in an effort to prevent the transfer of power to Joe Biden. Trump pleading not guilty, then complaining the case is unjust, especially for prosecutors to go after a current candidate and potential eventual opponent of the current president.
This was never supposed to happen in America. This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him.
Yet his own former attorney general saying Trump's behavior makes it hard to see him as the victim.
Whether it's criminal or not, someone who engaged in that kind of bullying about a process that is fundamental to our system and to our self-government shouldn't be anywhere near the Oval Office.
The next hearing is set for August 28th, at which point the judge will set a trial date, and prosecutors are anxious to have him tried. Trump's team would like to see this delayed possibly until after the presidential election. On Capitol Hill, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
Scott, thank you. And here are the dates to watch in the cases against Trump and the 2024 GOP campaign. Next Thursday, the former president faces arraignment in Florida in the superseding indictment in the probe into Trump's handling of classified documents. The first GOP primary debate is scheduled for August 23rd. Now looking to 2024. May 14th, a pre-trial hearing in special counsel's classified documents case. That trial could begin as early as May 20th. July 15th to the 18th, we have the Republican National Convention and Election Day on November 5th. New details. 2 U.S. sailors are now charged with providing highly sensitive military information to China. Jin Chao-wei, a 22-year-old sailor on the USS Essex in San Diego, was arrested Wednesday while boarding the ship. He is now accused of passing detailed information on the weapon systems and aircraft on board the Essex. 26-year-old Wenheng Zhao, stationed at Naval Base Ventura County outside San Diego, was also charged with conspiring to collect nearly $15,000 in bribes from a Chinese intelligence officer in exchange for U.S. naval orders, exercise plans, and photos and videos of electrical systems at Navy facilities. Now, Justice Department officials, they are stressing this is just the beginning of the investigation. China is unrivaled in the audacity and in the range of its malign efforts to subvert our laws. Make no mistake, as a department, we will continue to use every tool in our arsenal to counter the threat and to deter China. And as of right now, it is unclear if federal officials were looking at other U.S. sailors. This week, new information coming in from the war in Ukraine. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense says more than 40,000 tons of grain was damaged by a drone strike coordinated by the Kremlin in Odessa. Ukraine's officials are calling the attack a terrorist-like action using starvation as a weapon. They say millions of people could have been fed from the food storage that was hit. News of the strike coming as an alarming new report from the UK, US, and European Union accuses Russia of torture. Researchers from the Mobile Justice Team, funded by those countries, analyzed more than 300 cases and witness accounts from detention centers in the Kherson region. They found 43% mentioned practices of torture and sexual violence. After weeks of triple-digit temperatures, parts of the country are finally seeing some relief this weekend. The heat wave bearing down on the country could also burn a hole through your wallet. The National Desk's Angelo Brown joining us now, breaking down how excessive heat is costing you at the gas pump, and food prices could be next.
The oil industry and farmers facing the same challenge, excessive heat, surfacing, though, in different ways. Experts say extreme heat prevents refineries from running at full capacity, while excessive heat is also impacting productivity for farmers. Our team of reporters across the country are on the ground talking to farmers like family-owned J&J Farms in South Carolina. The sweltering heat bruising their crops.
It's slowing down the squash and the zucchini because the heat keeps bearing down on it in the middle of the day, and the plants can't take but so much heat.
Excessive heat adding another layer of financial pain, a higher water bill. A pecan farmer in New Mexico is using more water, and it's adding up.
If it cools off a little bit, I can water it every 3 weeks. Right now, I'm watering between 15, 16 days.
Sweltering heat is threatening to drive up gas prices even more. The global head of energy analysis and oil price information services telling USA Today oil refineries in Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and some other states struggle to run anywhere near at maximum rates. And we're already feeling it at the pump.
There I am, spending more than $40 on gas.
It's really frustrating, but I mean, I don't know. There's not much I can do about it.
Record-breaking heat is baking America's farmland. So far, experts say the cost is not showing up in large price swings at the grocery stores. Experts point to crop insurance and other economic factors. Our reporters talking to farmers across the country. Many say they need one thing: meaningful rainfall. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
That would be nice. Angela, thank you. Weather in July really left its mark on the U.S. beyond the extreme heat. According to the National Weather Service, we had the most severe weather on record. Look at these images. Last month had multiple thunderstorms and more reports of large hail than any other July on record. There were also tornadoes across the country, including ones in North Carolina and near the airport in Chicago. AI is continuing to advance, and with its human-like capabilities, there are questions about its impact on the workforce. Earlier this week, I spoke with Courtney from the Fact Check team to find out which jobs are most at risk. Concerns are growing over potential risks of artificial intelligence. I'm back with Courtney from the Fact Check team. In some jobs, Courtney, they're already seeing impacts, but we understand some jobs could actually be eliminated.
Right. According to a report from McKinsey Global Institute, 30% of hours worked today could be automated by 2030 thanks to generative AI, which, for context, is just AI that can create things. This means that impacts won't just be limited to jobs in fields like tech or data analysis. They'll spread to work involving interaction and creativity too. For example, low-wage jobs in the food and customer service industries like waitresses and cashiers are the most likely to be eliminated. In fact, low-wage earners are 14 times more likely to lose jobs to AI.
Wow, and how could this all impact the workforce as a whole?
So the report says that almost 12 million workers may need to find new jobs. Some will move into higher paying roles in the same industry, like a cashier moving up to a managerial position, but 9 million workers could move to a completely different field. Now, this may seem like a huge number, but for some context, about 9 million people changed jobs since the pandemic started.
All right, well, you know, there are so many sides of this, highlighting jobs, eliminating jobs, so it will be certainly interesting to see how this all plays out. Courtney, thank you for that. And for more on this Fact Check Team topic, including links to where the Fact Check Team found their sources, just scan that QR code on your screen or visit thenationaldesk.com. Right now, Americans are booking more trips abroad and fewer trips within the U.S. According to fare tracking company Hopper, international airfare is actually averaging $962, which is up 10% from last year. Domestic airfare, however, has fallen 11% to an average price of $249. It's good news for travelers looking for good deals, but bad news for airlines with U.S. heavy schedules. In a bid to get Americans to vacation closer to home, some U.S. carriers are slashing their prices. Airlines like JetBlue, Southwest, and Alaska Air are all being forced to discount prices due to more Americans wanting to go abroad now that COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted. U.S. carriers are banking on domestic ticket sales to pick up again in a few months when people take trips home for the holidays. Ahead here on the National Desk, inflation expectations, why prices at the pump could be going back up, and Hunter Biden in the hot seat. New claims the president's son used his father to leverage business deals. Taking a look at your money, private companies in the U.S. added 324,000 new jobs last month, according to payroll processing firm ADP. The increase was mostly driven by hotels, restaurants, bars, and related businesses. The total is well above the Dow Jones estimate of 175,000, but is less than the 455,000 added in June. Some experts say it's another sign the job market is still strong, despite a string of rate hikes. Mortgage rates are staying high, and it's impacting home buyers. According to the Mortgage Bankers Association, applications for housing purchases fell 3% last week compared to the previous week and are 26% lower compared to a year ago. This is the third straight week the purchase index has decreased. It's now at its lowest level since the beginning of June. Following a surge in positive economic reports, some economists are now saying the U.S. could avoid a recession. This week, the National Desk's Angelo Brown sat down with former economic advisor Steve Moore to break down the new numbers and how this could all impact you.
You know, let's talk about jobs first. I mean, right now, the latest report, jobs openings, dropped from dropped to 9.6 million. We were hovering over 10 million for the longest time. Now we're finally dipped under that mark of 10 million. On top of that, quits are down. What do you think this says about the job market when you take those two factors into account?
We have a very, very strong job market right now. There's no question about it. I mean, nearly 10 million job openings, Angela. That's a lot. Now, you're right. It's declined a little bit. But my goodness, you've got 6 million unemployed people and 10 million job openings. So that means actually there's a surplus of jobs. And a lot of employers are still saying, Angela, one of their problems is finding the workers to fill the jobs. So right now, I don't see a recession right now. In fact, the latest forecast for the economy for the start of the third quarter is about 3% growth, which is a good, solid number. So right now, the economy is looking a little bit healthier. What worries me, Angela, is the I word, inflation. If you look at what's happening with gas prices, energy prices, rents, and so on, we're starting to see a little resurgence of inflation again.
Well, let's talk about inflation, because as we know, inflation has dipped from when we were hitting, what was it, 9.5? Right. That was the worst. And now it's still, it is going down. That is one encouraging sign. But now we're seeing, it going up in some areas. And you talk about gas. That's where Americans are really feeling it right now.
Yeah, so let's get the story right. So you're exactly right. This time last year when we were talking, remember the inflation rate hit, I think, 9.2%, the highest rate in 40 years. It did come down in May and June to around 3 to 4%. What I'm telling you is now we're starting to see it migrate up again. And you're exactly right about the gas prices. That's a lead indicator of where inflation is headed. So the big problem with the economy, as I see it, is you still have a problem where worker wages continue to fall below the inflation rate, which means people get poorer. Their paychecks don't take them as far as it used to. I went to the grocery store this last weekend for the first time in several months, because normally my wife does the grocery shopping. I couldn't believe what a milk cost and what
you're right about that, yeah.
Hamburger cost, and so I don't know if you've experienced that, Angela, but the things you have to buy, those prices continue to rise.
When you say that, even though technically the numbers have gone down, but you still aren't feeling it when you walk into the grocery store. And that's why sometimes it's hard for people who are working hard, folks who are watching us in maybe Toledo or Charleston, to see that difference, because like you said, eggs are still higher, and you're not getting that translation when you go to the grocery store.
And you can view the full interview plus more top stories online all the time at thenationaldesk.com. New details from the Capitol. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer publicly released the 141-page redacted transcript from an interview a former business associate of Hunter Biden had Monday at the Capitol. Devin Archer testified then Vice President Joe Biden was, quote, the brand that Hunter pitched to businesses around the world. Republicans claim Hunter used his father to line the Biden family's pockets. Democrats maintain then Vice President Biden did not know to what extent Hunter was using his father's name. The National Desk Kayla Gaskins digs into what Archer's testimony revealed.
As President Biden vacations in Delaware, the scrutiny surrounding his family's international business deals continues.
When it comes to Donald Trump, there are no rules. Destroy him, destroy his family. When it comes to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, they get away with almost everything.
Critics allege Hunter Biden profited handsomely off his last name.
One of the big questions has always been, what was Hunter Biden doing for all of this money? There's no discernible service, no discernible product that he seemed to offer to any of these foreign entities.
Hunter's former business associate, Devin Archer, offered one possible answer to that question.
You got to be an expert in knowing the guy, and he was the guy that was the expert in knowing the guy.
Archer confirming points made in his closed-door congressional testimony earlier this week, that Hunter would often place his dad on speakerphone when international business associates were present.
I don't know if it was an orchestrated call-in or not. It certainly was powerful, though. In the rear view, it's an abuse of soft power, I'd say.
Archer said that business was never discussed with Joe Biden on those calls. He also testified that Joe Biden had no direct contact with with Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company that hired Hunter to serve on its board, but added, "I think Burisma would have gone out of business if it didn't have the Biden name attached to it." According to the transcript of his testimony released Thursday, Archer also recalled Joe Biden attending 2 dinners with Hunter's business associates while he was vice president, appearing to contradict Joe Biden's stance he had nothing to do with Hunter's business deals.
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
The White House pushing back. Spokesman Ian Sam saying Archer's testimony confirms Joe Biden was not involved in his son's business dealings. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Kayla, thank you. Still ahead here, an uptick in leprosy within the U.S., where the cases are concentrated and how the disease spreads. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America. We start in Maryland, where the Baltimore Orioles are struggling with low ticket sales despite having their best season in almost a decade. Some are pointing to crime as the reason.
The Orioles are #1 in the AL East, something not seen since 2014. Mayor Brandon Scott is confident the team will go all the way.
And I look forward to seeing us win the World Series and eliminate the Spankies in the playoffs later this year at Oriole Park.
But when it comes to filling seats, the O's are ranked 23rd out of the 30 MLB teams, according to BaseballReference.com.
So the mayor should be talking about, we care about your safety when you come to Baltimore. We take that very seriously. We're doing things to make you safer in a city that has been quite dangerous historically.
Economist Aniban Basu says the mayor should be less focused on home runs and more on crime stats that could be affecting ticket sales.
A lot of people have become accustomed to not going to downtown Baltimore. Not having those fans come downtown, that has a huge negative economic impact.
In the backdrop of Camden Yards, the murder of Timothy Reynolds by a squeegee kid last year. This year, 2 shootings, 2 carjackings, and 4 robberies, all within a mile of the field. The mayor himself acknowledging changes need to be made.
We want to see at Camden Yards what you see around other ballparks. More development, more activation, more things happening.
Now over to Florida. The state is seeing a surge in leprosy cases, also known as Hansen's disease. The chronic infectious disease affects the skin and nerves. According to a new CDC report, Central Florida accounted for nearly 81% of leprosy cases reported in Florida and almost 1/5 of cases across the U.S. While the disease can be treated with antibiotics, it must be caught early to avoid long-term damage to nerves and limbs.
The problem is identification. You have to be very in tune with having seen it before, because we just don't see that type of infection here in the States.
In 2015, in Florida made headlines after experts blamed infected armadillos for a surge in cases. The new cases, however, don't appear to be related to any wild animals. In Oregon, self-service just started on Friday. Gas stations in the state are now giving residents the option to pump their own, leaving New Jersey as the only state in the U.S. with a self-service ban. The new law designates up to 50% of pumps as self-service in non-rural counties only. Some Oregon drivers say the option to pump their own gas comes as a relief.
I really like it because as a small business owner that travels between 100 to 200 miles a day, being able to get in and get out fast, usually they only have like 4 lanes open, and when all 6 lanes are open, it makes it a lot easier for us small guys.
And the law still requires an attendant be available at all times. Ahead here on the National Desk, America's News Now. Advertising in the aisles, the new Walmart strategy that critics say could drive away shoppers. Taking a look at the top trending stories on our website right now. In Kansas, a man was reunited with his dog this week almost 2 years after he was reportedly stolen. Staff at the Kansas Humane Society said the dog definitely remembered his dad. Certainly seems like it. Love a happy ending there. Taylor Swift has gifted every truck driver for her Eras tour a $100,000 bonus. Nice. The tour is expected to generate over $1 billion in revenue. In Florida, deputies at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office gave a 6-year-old boy with autism a special birthday surprise. The officers showed up in his neighborhood, brought him a gift bag, and let him try out some of their equipment. Very sweet. Those stories much more available right now at thenationaldesk.com. Developing now, Walmart is finding new ways to make money off you while you shop, even if you don't buy anything. Walmart shoppers may soon see third-party ads in store aisles and self-checkout lanes or hear them over the intercom. Think of it as a side hustle from Walmart, selling the eyes and ears of its many customers to advertisers. It's intended to make Walmart some extra money independent of store or online sales. Retailers like Kroger and Target have made similar moves, but experts warn it could backfire if customers find the ads to be an annoying addition to their shopping experience. Ahead in our next half hour, crunching the numbers, how a downgrade in America's credit rating could impact American families. Plus, safety concerns at the southern border. Right now, the risky conditions for border agents and migrants. You're watching the National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back. Taking a look at the top trending stories on our website right now. In Kansas, a man was reunited with his dog this week, almost 2 years after he was reportedly stolen. Staff at the Kansas Humane Society said the dog definitely remembered his dad. It certainly looks like it. Taylor Swift has gifted every truck driver for her Eras tour a $100,000 bonus. Nice. The tour expected to generate over $1 billion in revenue. And a sweet story here in Florida. Deputies at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office gave a 6-year-old boy with autism a special birthday surprise. The officers showed up in his neighborhood, brought him a gift bag, and let him try out some of their equipment. Those stories and much more available right now at thenationaldesk.com. Developing now, Walmart is finding new ways to make money off you while you shop, even if you don't buy anything. Walmart shoppers may soon see third-party ads in store aisles and self-checkout lanes or hear them over the intercom. Think of it as a side hustle for Walmart, selling the eyes and ears of its many customers to advertisers. It's intended to make Walmart some extra money independent of store or online sales. Retailers like Kroger and Target have made similar moves, but experts warn it could backfire if customers find the ads to be an annoying addition to their shopping experience. Ahead in our next half hour, crunching the numbers, how a downgrade in America's credit rating could impact American families. Plus, safety concerns at the southern border. Right now, the risky conditions for border agents and migrants. You're watching the National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back.
The National Desk, America's News Now.
From the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. We're happy you're with us. This week, we're keeping an eye on your money. Fitch Ratings has downgraded America's long-term credit rating from AAA to the next level, down AA+. The ratings agency, they have cited raising and rising debt levels and a polarized political culture, which reportedly makes the U.S. less dependable when it comes to paying off its debt. The Treasury Secretary is denouncing the decision, touting more than 13 million new jobs since January 2021, a near historically low 3.6% unemployment rate, and a monthly decline in overall annual inflation.
Fitch's decision is puzzling in light of the economic strength we see in the United States. I strongly disagree with Fitch's decision, and I believe it is entirely unwarranted.
And the two big questions this week: what does this mean for the country and how it could impact American families? The National Desk, Atra El-Nashar explains.
A blow to the credibility of U.S. debt from one of the top 3 rating agencies, occurring for the first time since 2011 and for only the second time in history. Fitch Ratings says their downgrade is based on expected fiscal deterioration over the next 3 years, a growing government debt burden, and the erosion of governance compared to other top-rated countries. The firm reportedly cited January 6th as an example during a meeting with Biden administration officials.
We're very safe. Still an extremely safe asset, but not quite as good as AAA.
At best. Mark Goldwine, Senior Vice President and Senior Policy Director for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, notes the U.S. still holds the world's reserve currency and remains the safest place to park large sums of money.
My hope is that this does not have an effect on everyday people. The risk is if there are further downgrades,
which would come with even higher interest rates, slower economic growth, and an overall weaker economy. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen calling the downgrade arbitrary and based on outdated data. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre blames, quote, extremism by Republican officials, like seeking to extend deficit-busting tax giveaways for the wealthy and corporations. The Republican Party blaming President Biden and Democrats, who say they, quote, took the country to the brink of default amid an increasingly unsteady economic path.
I'm worried this is actually going to create more divisiveness, which is actually going to feed right into the very thing that the downgrade warned about.
That, plus the rising cost of Medicare and Social Security, rising deficits in which interest payments are on track to outpace defense spending, and the frequent threat of debt ceiling crises and government shutdowns. Speaking of, Congress is staring down the barrel of another shutdown if they don't pass a budget or stopgap bill by September 30th. Tensions between the party only getting worse with the news of this downgrade, an investigation into Hunter Biden, and a third indictment of former President Trump. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atrell Najjar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Atra, thank you. Now to the crisis at the southern border. 2 bodies have been found in the Rio Grande River, including one that was spotted tangled in the lines of the buoy barrier in Eagle Pass, Texas. Officials say the other body was found about 3 miles upriver from the buoys. Both are adults, reportedly from Mexico and Honduras. The U.S. Department of Justice recently sued Texas over the use of the buoys. Mexico opposes the barrier over concerns about migrant safety. As the legal battle over the buoy barrier continues, some are raising new concerns over the number of people on the terrorist watch list entering the U.S. The National Desk Jan Jeffcoat continues our team coverage with former head of Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan.
140 people on the terror watch list have already been apprehended between ports of entry. That's up 50% from last year already. Mark, you worked in both the Obama and Trump administrations. Only 3 happened in the last year of the Trump administration. What's your thoughts when you see how brazen these criminals have literally begun to cross the border now?
Yeah, Jan, I also did 20 years in the FBI where I worked counterterrorism. And your question, to my opinion, is the question. First of all, what it shows, and my first thought is how this secretary is a complete lying to the American people when he says our borders are secure. They are not secure. What happens is when you have millions of illegal aliens pass through, you're pulling 80 to 90% of Border Patrol resources off the front line. So actually the criminals aren't that brazen because it's fairly easy for them to cross and avoid apprehension right now. And Jan, you talked about the numbers on the FBI's terror screening database that are apprehended. What we should be scared about are the ones we're not apprehended. In the first 29 months of this administration, there have been 1.7 million total nationwide gotaways, those that avoided apprehension. How many people on the terrorist watch list are among the 1.7 million total gotaways? And how about murderers, rapists, pedophiles, aggravated felons, and gang members? This should be terrifying for all of us.
Ohio Senator J.D. Vance proposed legislation that would essentially crack down on visa overstays of immigrants who are here with temporary visas. Mark, how would this work?
Yeah, Jan, look, it's not real complicated. What he's suggesting is that anyone applying for a visa, they have to pay thousands of dollars up front, and that will serve as a guarantee that they will abide with the conditions of their visa, meaning that once their visa ends, they won't overstay and remain in the country illegally. Imagine that we're actually going to enact laws that are going to act as a deterrent for someone to violate the law rather than reward them for doing it. Remember, it's this. Go ahead, Jan.
I was going to say, it would also bar visa overstays those who overstay their visa from making a defensive asylum claim after their visas have expired as well.
Yeah, Jan, and this is a very key, important part of this, because we know one of the driving factors of the crisis on our border is fraudulent claims, meaning the overwhelming majority of migrants that are coming to our border, and whether they come through a visa or illegally through the southwest border, are economic migrants. They're filing false asylum claims. They're exploiting loopholes in our system, and they do that through the visa overstay. This law would act as a deterrent to avoid and prevent that exploitation from happening and put integrity back in the system.
Tell us how significant this is.
It's very significant because, again, the overwhelming majority, and this is what's very frustrating, this is what I always say, Jan, that America's compassion has been hijacked. And the fact is that we know the overwhelming majority of people that apply for asylum, again, whether they illegally enter through our southern border or they use it after they overstay a visa, they're fraudulent claims. Over 90% do not get relief in our court system. And so if we can close down that abuse and put integrity back in the system, it's going to have an absolutely positive impact.
Former Acting Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.
You bet. You too. Thanks.
Right now, the White House is taking action to address the student debt crisis. A test website was launched this week for its new income-driven repayment plan. According to the administration, the site should only take 10 minutes to use, and borrowers only have to apply once. Here's what the new plan could mean for you. Income and family size will determine the payment amount for current and future borrowers. Some payments could drop to zero. That's only if your income is 225% or less of the federal poverty level, which translates to around $32,800 for a single borrower and $67,500 for a family. Other borrowers could see payments cut in half and canceled after at least 10 years of repayment. Developing now, the personal information of more than 600,000 Medicare beneficiaries was compromised. Russian ransomware group Klomp is claiming responsibility for the cyber attack. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services says beneficiaries' names, social security numbers, and medical records may have been leaked. They are now sending letters to those potentially affected and offering 2 years of free credit monitoring services. And we're learning about new threats. Chinese malware may pose to critical infrastructure near U.S. military bases all around the world. Government officials are scouring networks for malware that could threaten power grids, communication systems, and water supplies that feed into those bases. The FBI says the task is a major feat because China's hacking program is bigger than every major nation combined. The summer heat wave has been a scorcher, and even the ocean couldn't keep its cool, putting swimmers in hot water. This week, the Fact Check team investigated what the high temps could mean for hurricane season and campaign season.
Record high ocean temperatures are being recorded around the Florida Keys. According from the Fact Check team joining me now, experts warn that this could have an impact on hurricane season. Why is that?
That's exactly right. The rest of hurricane season, which ends on November 30th, could see more and stronger storms because warm ocean water is one of the main components of a hurricane. The warmer the water, the stronger and bigger the storm. Now, hurricane season typically ramps up in August, so it'll be interesting to see if and how these temperatures play a role.
Now, to balance that, though, we are also under the influence of El Nino, which typically suppresses storms, so we'll hope for the best there. But what effect is climate having politically as we head into an election year here with campaigns already in full swing?
So this might be surprising, but so far climate change has rarely been mentioned on the 2024 campaign trail, and it seems that voters are more focused on other issues too. A recent Quinnipiac poll found that only 5% of voters say climate change is the most important issue. For comparison, an NPR poll from March found that 8% of voters consider climate change to be the most important issue.
Now, lots of issues fighting for our attention these days. Thanks, Courtney. And for more on this Fact Check team topic, including links to Courtney's sources, you want to scan the QR code on your screen or visit us online at thenationaldesk.com.
So to come here, our team of correspondents breaking down this week in Washington, from Donald Trump's legal strategy to the nation's credit rating downgrade and what it means for you.
And welcome back. Our Washington Bureau covers the nation's capital every day to report on the important issues facing the country and how they impact you. The Bureau's correspondents are here with their insights on the stories they've been covering. Former President Donald Trump indicted again this past week, pleading not guilty to conspiring to block the certification of the 2020 election and 3 other charges. Chief Political Correspondent Scott Thuman, what is Trump's legal strategy in this case?
Yeah, Steve, there are many of them, but just a few. If we want to pinpoint, you've got his team saying that, first off, this case shouldn't be taking place because you have a Justice Department run under President Biden going against a potential eventual political foe, because a lot of people still think this could be a Biden-Trump 2024 ticket going up against each other. So they say it's inappropriate there. They also believe the timing of it would encumber or prevent Donald Trump from getting out there on the campaign trail as much as he wants. They claim that he would be tied up with depositions, legal proceedings, and those matters. So that, they also say, is inappropriate. And then finally, one of the other methods that they might be able to get a win on is a venue change. They are arguing that Washington, D.C. is not Trump territory. It's the complete opposite. You've got about 95% of voters here in the district who voted against Donald Trump. They say very difficult to find a jury pool that they believe would be fair, and that's one of the other motions they're going to push for with this judge.
And there's no question, as long as he's a candidate in this race, this is what we'll be talking about, probably topic number 1. Trump and his backers argue there's a 2-tiered system of justice, saying he's held to a different standard than Joe Biden and his son Hunter. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins, there were developments this past week in the Republican investigation into Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings.
Yeah, this week we heard from a witness that Republicans have been excited to hear from for a while now. This is Devin Archer. He's one of Hunter Biden's former business associates. He testified behind closed doors to Congress earlier this week, and then he actually did a sit-down interview later in the week. So one of the big takeaways from his closed-door testimony with Congress was that during Hunter Biden's business meeting, he said he put his dad, Joe Biden, when he was vice president, on the phone about 20 times while his business associates were in the room. Now, this all goes back to Republicans attempting to connect Joe Biden to Hunter Biden's business deals and business schemes, and wondering how close or how involved his dad was. So this shows that at least there was Joe Biden was at least aware of what his son was doing. Something Devin Archer said was possibly an abuse of soft power in his sit-down interview later this week. And this, of course, directly contradicts what Joe Biden has said for years, that he had absolutely no knowledge of his son's business dealings. And what Republicans are trying to connect here is if the Biden family was selling access and influence to Joe Biden to these foreign companies, they didn't really get their smoking gun, per se, from Devin Archer, but we will hear from more witnesses as this investigation.
And just as with Trump's legal issues, this is an issue that Republicans are going to make sure that Joe Biden hears about as long as he's running for president before the election next year. Meanwhile, the nation's credit rating downgraded this past week. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar, how serious is this, and what does it mean for the average American?
Yeah, many comparing this to a warning shot for the economy. This credit rating downgrade really isn't going to affect people, save for a medium short-term dip in the stock market, which we saw this week. But things did turn around here because, Fitch downgraded the United States' credit rating from AAA to AA+. So it's like your kid coming home. They used to get A+, now they're getting straight A's. The United States, experts I talked to say, is still the safest place in the world to park large sums of money. But the review of the U.S. fiscal picture, it was pretty scathing. And what went into their downgrade, they say, was fiscal deterioration, a growing government debt burden, and an erosion of governance. And reportedly, Fitch told Biden administration officials that they saw January 6th as an example of that erosion of governance. So the risk here is if this triggers more credit downgrades where we get into just AA territory or even lower, maybe into the Bs. That is when you could see interest rates go up. You could see slower economic growth and just an overall weaker economy. And that is something that everyday Americans would certainly feel. Of course, this kind of thing happens very, very slowly. The last time we saw credit downgrading was more than a decade ago. So these kinds of evolvements in assessment of the U.S. economic picture move at a glacial pace. But again, it does lay out some existential issues that the U.S. economy faces. And we're going to see how this plays out in the current appropriations process as lawmakers try and come up with a government budget before September 30th or a stopgap bills to avoid a government shutdown.
National correspondents Audra Elnishaw, Kayla Gaskins, and our chief political correspondent Scott Thuman. Thank you all for your great reporting and for your hard work. Back to you.
Thank you all. Developing now, power play. Electricity providers warning of potential issues, and it stems from a Biden administration proposal that would require power plants to dramatically reduce their emissions. Opponents say this will force them to close and hurt the nation's energy supply. The National Desk, Janae Bowens, joining us now with more on the possible impact.
Some power providers are worried that renewable energy like solar and wind are not reliable sources for things like our air conditioners and electric vehicles. And they say if the nation gets rid of coal and gas energy too quickly, much of the country could be left in the dark. Energy leaders voiced their concerns over the country's power supply on Tuesday during a U.S. Energy Association press briefing.
Now's the time to slow down on the removal of the thermal assets from our footprint.
The warnings about a proposed rule from the Environmental Protection Agency that would require coal and gas-fired power plants to cut their pollution by 90% by 2040 or stop operating.
It's important for the American people to have electricity with low electricity bills and also avoid blackouts. And the problems with adding renewables too quickly is that there isn't enough backup power from natural gas in order to ensure that people have a stable supply of electricity.
The problem with wind and solar, the wind does not blow all the time, and the sun only is usable for solar power when it's shining.
The EPA says the proposal will protect public health and deliver up to $85 billion in climate and public health benefits over the next 2 decades. The Bipartisan Policy Center says it can work.
We need to be thinking strategically about how we plan the system so when the coal plants retire, we have the infrastructure in place, the transmission lines and the new power plants available.
About 40 Republican senators wrote a letter to the EPA asking the agency to scrap the proposed power plant rules. Now, they say the agency does not have the authority to do this. Meanwhile, the public has until August 8th to comment on the proposal. Reporting for the National Desk, I'm Janae Bowens.
Janae, thank you. Coming up here on the National Desk, the city's seeing a surge in overdose calls. First responders weighing in on how to address the addiction crisis. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. From a jump in drug overdose calls in Oregon to the efforts to capture an aggressive otter in California. We're taking the pulse of America, but we begin in Beaumont, Texas, where an ongoing school bus driver shortage is sparking safety concerns before the school year even begins.
BISD high schools generally start classes between 7 and 7:20 a.m. This means some students have to be at their bus stops as early as 5:30 in the morning, leaving some parents concerned about safety.
They had to combine the routes together, a lot of routes, and it's taking time to get all these kids and to get them to school on time.
The district has 67 drivers and needs 14 more to be fully staffed. Until then, combined routes will lead to earlier pickup times.
What we try to do is drop off the high school students as early as 6:35, 6:45 in the morning so we can start with that same driver to start picking up the elementary school students to get them to school on time.
Transportation Director Todd Coleman says he understands parents' concerns, but maintains BISD prioritizes safety when determining bus pickup times.
911 calls in the city of Portland are up dramatically since 2020, from 242,000 calls in 2020 to 328,000 in 2023 so far. Portland Fire and Rescue is the default agency that responds to medical emergencies, including drug overdoses. Public Safety Commissioner Renee Gonzalez says the short-term solution is to increase the number of emergency responders, but the long-term solution is more complicated. Reduce the number of overdoses. The legislature passed a bill in June that recriminalizes small amounts of fentanyl possession. Gonzalez says that's a good first step, but he'd also like to see outside consumption become illegal.
Right now, we can limit how someone consumes alcohol, and we cannot limit or prescribe how people use meth and fentanyl outside. It makes no sense.
I'm sure you remember this little otter. Well, she's been outsmarting scientists trying to capture her for the past month. The 5-year-old otter goes by the name 841 and has gained popularity all over social media for jumping on surfers' boards and biting them. People across the world have been protesting to keep 841 free. This hashtag has been used in thousands of posts. The problem is, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and Demand from Santa Cruz disagree with the public, saying Otter 841's behavior might indicate she's sick.
I do firmly believe that she needs to get captured and go to the Monterey Bay Aquarium so they can check her out and figure out if there is something wrong with her or not.
AMC Theater says it had its most successful week in ticket sales since its founding in 1920, thanks to the movies Barbie and Oppenheimer. The chain says July 21st through the 27th set the new record, and tickets are still selling fast. AMC says 65 of its locations also set box office records due to the popularity of the films. Combined, they have made more than $1 billion globally in just 10 days. Wow. Looking ahead to stories making headlines this week, Monday is National Purple Heart Day, honoring veterans who are killed or injured in service to our country. George Washington awarded the original Purple Heart in 1782. Also next week, Tuesday, is the deadline for service members exposed to toxic substances to apply for health care benefits under the PACT Act. Veterans who were exposed to burn pits or served at Camp Lejeune in the Gulf War and Southeast Asia and in the Vietnam War are eligible to apply. Tuesday is also Election Day in 9 states. Take a look at your screen there. Ohio holding a statewide special election, while others like North Dakota and Colorado are hosting recall elections. And that's going to do it for us on the weekend edition of the National Desk, America's News Now. Don't forget, you can catch us live from from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Check your local listings. And you can also watch us online and catch up with the latest headlines on thenationaldesk.com. That'll do it for us on the weekend edition of The National Desk. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and from all of us, have a great week.